Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your host, coming to you from the Lance Chuck Camper Mobile Podcast Studio, Master Captain Angie Scott.
Happy holidays and welcome to another episode of the Woman Angler and Adventurer Podcast. Can you believe we're about to head into 2023 already? There are a lot of exciting things on the horizon, so I thought I'd take a pause this week to recap 2022 and let the cat out of the bag for a very exciting development in the works for 2023. So I'm down here in Fort Myers, Florida, where I've been living full-time in the Lance Truck Camper Mobile Podcast Studio for a few weeks. We're at the Blue Way RV Village, and they have done a ton of work here since Hurricane Ian, when the park was 4 to 6 feet underwater. It's even hard to imagine at this point. They've made a lot of improvements even before the hurricane, like a pickleball court and a putting green. It's just really phenomenal what they've done here at Blue Way. So just a quick shout out to them for all the hard work that they've put in. The first exciting announcement I've got is that we have a new team member in training for Team Scott. As of today, 9-week-old little Lakeland, who's a golden doodle pup, we picked her up at 6 weeks and immediately traveled down to Florida that same day. And she's been doing phenomenal so far. Such a smart little pup and getting bigger and smarter every day. So can't wait for some of you guys to get to meet her down the road. She is a cutie pie, to say the least. Second exciting thing is we're really close in proximity here to our good friend Captain Debbie Hanson, who I've had on the show now a few times. And the Saturday before last, I got to head back into the studio at Southwest Florida ESPN Radio to catch up and talk about our upcoming women's kayak fishing meetup on January 8th in Matlacha with Gulf Coast Kayaks. And there's still maybe a few spots available. If anyone's interested, shoot me a note, Angie@thewomanangler.com, and I can get you all the details if you want to join us for that. You can either, there's a guided option, or if you just have your own kayaking gear and you want to come just fish with us and have some lunch afterwards, it's going to be a really fun time. So really looking forward to that. And this meetup is on the heels of the National Professional Anglers Association Conference, featuring speakers the likes of Gerald Swindle and Bobby Lane. So can't wait for that conference happening right here in Fort Myers. Funny how things all work out, but you know, this whole community has done a lot of work around here. We have not been to Fort Myers Beach yet. Obviously that was hit the hardest. So, you know, there's probably still a lot of businesses that are closed in that area, but around here everything is pumping. It's again phenomenal just to see what they've done since the devastation of the hurricane. So we'll be sure to update you on how all that goes on an upcoming episode of the show. But Debbie and I had the chance to take a day right before Christmas and hop around to some of her favorite freshwater fishing spots to hit from the bank, and we had an absolute blast. I actually got 2 firsts, my first bowfin, and finally my first peacock bass, so checking that one off the bucket list. And I'm looking forward to getting past this cold front we've got going on right now and get back out there to do some more exploring. I brought with me 2 of my St. Croix Victory bass rods, and now I've got 2 brand new St. Croix inshore rods that I can't wait to break in. So that'll probably be the next thing, and definitely will have them along with me on that kayak fishing trip because that's going to be inshore. And by the way, anybody concerned about red tide, hasn't been too bad. So I think by the time January 8th rolls around, we're going to be good to go. No issues there. But our conversation in the studio ended up being such a great recap of 2022. So I thought I'd share it with you, some of the clips from the show on this week's episode. And if you listen the whole way through, you're going to get to hear the third big announcement for 2023. So be sure and not miss that. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy.
listening to Real Talk Radio on ESPN Southwest Florida. Online at ESPNSWFL.com.
Got any bites yet? I do. Just like that lady Greta told me, down by the Cold Creek. It don't matter if the poles are dusty, beer in the tackle box, out on the flat rock, big neck hook with only the right look, lure in the sunshine, ripples in the sweet tide, Papa's going out of sight, even if it takes all night. Ooh, I'm gonna catch me a winner, 'cause I kinda like them bigger, and I don't.
Good morning, fishing fans. This is Captain Debbie Hanson welcoming you to another edition of Real Talk Radio on 98.1 FM and 770 AM here in Southwest Florida. You can also listen to us live from anywhere at ESPNSWFL.com or by downloading the ESPN Southwest Florida app. It is producer Rick Church and I here in the studio this morning. Happy holidays. Along with my special guest co-host, Captain Angie Scott, Bass Tournament angler and host of the award-winning Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast. How's it going, Angie?
Hey, it's going great. Glad to be here this morning.
Thanks so much for coming back.
Absolutely.
It's great to have you. I know you have been on the road, and I know this past week you were up in Venice and doing a lot of back and forth driving to the Freedom Boat Club. You had a training session this past week, right?
Yep, very busy
so it's been
week.
Busy.
Yep.
For you.
But love being back down here in Florida. Can't wait to get out there and start doing some fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you and Dana could come down for this season. And it really means a lot to have your support in the community, especially after the past couple of months. So thanks so much for coming down. And I'm really excited and looking forward to our women's fishing meetup that's coming up in January, too.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
We'll get into that for sure. So, Angie, I know we have a ton to cover. Definitely no lack of things to talk about here this morning. We're going to be talking about your experiences on the Bass Tournament Trail with the LBAA this past year. We're going to be talking about some ways we can increase retention and support diversity in the fishing community. We'll talk a little bit about our meetup, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the upcoming NPAA conference. That's going to be the first week of January here in Fort Myers. Also excited about that. So, Angie, let's jump right into it this morning because, like I said, I know we've got a lot to cover, a lot to touch on. So let's just start, holy smokes, let's just start going back to your experiences on the LBAA tournament trail over this past year.
Yeah, it was a little bit up and down for me throughout the year, but I ended up qualifying to fish the Classic, so that's always the goal. Yeah. And so the very first tournament of 2022 was down on Lake Ray Hubbard, which is just outside of Dallas in Garland, Texas. And we had actually fished that the year before, so I was already a little bit familiar, which is always nice, when it's not a totally brand new.
Not a new fishery for you. You've got some experience.
But as with the history with LBA, it seems like we just happen to bring in the craziest weather conditions everywhere we go. And so the first day of the tournament was okay, but the second day they were calling for very, very cold weather, high winds, and that particular body of water, if you get high winds, it can be very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And so the tournament director ended up making the call to make it a one-day tournament. So usually it's a 2-day tournament. So that was a little different, but thankfully on day one, I ended up catching my personal best in a tournament so far. At the end of the day, like literally 30 minutes left in the tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. And on a technique.
That is fantastic.
And on a technique that I've never fished before. So if you know me, I'm kind of known for the Senko. Like I like a very finesse.
More of a finesse approach. Yeah.
And I always fish it Texas rig style. This particular day, for whatever reason, I decided to try wacky rig, which I have fished before. I've just never had any success with it, so I always just go back to my Texas rig that I'm comfortable with.
Which is like your go-to,
Yeah.
one of your go-tos, yeah.
Yeah, but I ended up, fishing that wacky rig, and that's what I caught this. So it weighed in at 5.33, so decent. Decent sized bass.
Yeah, that's exciting.
That was super fun.
Yeah, well, and especially so was there a front that was coming through?
Yes. Yep.
So you guys, instead of fishing the 2 full days that you normally had, you just had the one,
Mm-hmm.
and then, because you fish, how many, remind me now, it's 4 events.
So 3
on the tournament trail, correct?
Yeah, 3 regular events, and then if you qualify, you fish the classic. So that makes 4. So Pam Martin Wells, who is one of probably the winningest, most lady angler, bass angler of all time, fishes with us. And that morning started off, so we were in a marina because of the winds. It was still windy that day.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go into a marina where it was going to be kind of blocked from the wind.
Protected. Yeah.
So there was like a rock wave breaker, and I was on one side. Pam Martin Wells was on the opposite side, fishing a crankbait. And we were literally mirror imaging each other down this rock wall, and I was watching her put on a clinic. Yeah.
Well, at least you were in the right area.
Right?
If she's here, then I'm in the right area.
So actually, where she was putting on that clinic in the morning, that's where I ended up catching that big one at the end of the day.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I can't wait to talk more about your experiences on the tournament trail, because I know with every tournament that you fish, you're learning new things, and you're so great. And I want to talk a little bit about your evolution with the podcast this morning too, because I love the way you share all of the ups and downs and the things that you're learning along the way, which I think it's so important, because there's so many women who are looking up to you, they're inspired by you, and they're learning along with you as they listen to the podcast, as they read your updates on your Facebook page. So I want to talk about all of that this morning too. So we're talking about your experiences on the LBA tournament trail over the past year. We talked about Lake Ray Hubbard was the first event. Mm-hmm. Then you were in Louisiana, and that was Caddo Lake, right?
Yes, very, very different situation, Caddo Lake. It is I think the only natural lake in Louisiana, maybe in the whole region, I don't know, but it's extremely shallow.
Okay.
And
which is like a lot of our lakes here in Florida.
Yes, yeah. So I have never fished a lake that has boat lanes before. So they literally go out and they bulldoze down or chop down all the trees and set up markers so you knew where the safe areas are to boat, because otherwise you're probably
of stumps and submerged timber.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my first experience with boat lanes ever. And so my practice was, I had to learn that first and foremost before I could even get to start thinking about fishing.
Yeah, and remind me, how many days of practice do you have at each location?
I think it's it ends up being 3.5 or 4.5 days.
Okay.
A lot of the ladies don't take that last half day because we have our meeting that day, and then that's kind of like the rest day before the tournament starts. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them do still go out and fish in the morning, try to figure out their morning strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I travel in my Lance truck camper, which is dubbed as the mobile podcast studio.
Yeah, because actually the last time you were in the studio, you and Dana had just picked up, or you were getting ready to go back and pick up the Lance truck camper.
A whole process.
And you were figuring it all out. Yeah.
Yep.
So give us the scoop.
Yeah, so we got everything dialed in. We had to have some modifications done to the truck because these are, very big campers that sit in the bed of the truck.
Yeah.
And this one has a slide out to give a little bit extra room, which is nice. But also, we had to have airbags installed on the truck and an extended hitch so we can pull the boat and, just stuff like that. So, but it's a perfect rig for what we do. We don't have to stay in hotels. We can, just stay in our own camper.
Nice.
Yeah.
And save so much money.
Yeah, it does save some money. And so I always, when we plan our schedule, I like to look at what lakes we're going to, see if there's campgrounds on the lake where I can just keep the boat right there in the water, which makes it so convenient for practice. I don't have to, deal with launching and driving to the ramp and all that. I literally get up out of the camper, walk outside,
roll out of bed and go
down to the boat,
and
I'm
can't
off.
beat that.
And, I can take a lunch break, just come right back in, go to the camper, grab some lunch, and then boom, I'm off again. It's amazing. So definitely planning to do that again in 2023. But so Caddo Lake, it was that situation. We were at a campground right on the lake. You can't ask for a better situation. And a lot of times, not to give away my strategy, but a lot of times I end up finding really great fishing areas, productive areas right by the campground, which also makes it super convenient. So Caddo was that way. Day one, I fished the campground, and there, of course, LBA weather was coming in, and we ended up having to cut the day short because it started lightning really bad.
Yeah.
And right before that happened, I have a co-angler on the back of the boat. Both of us just started really getting in. I mean, cast after cast, we were catching fish right in front of the campground.
Yeah, because the pressure is fluctuating like crazy right before the storm's rolling in, right? And the fish are chowing down.
What was funny is Dana had seen us, and she came down and she was taking video right when my co-angler caught a nice bass and got all that on film.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But
you need your own TV series.
Yeah, exactly.
Or your own TV show.
So, but then, we had to hightail it back to the ramp to get out of the water because of the lightning. And some of the ladies stuck it out a lot longer than they should have. And the wind hit, and it was blowing right into the ramp. And we were on land at that point, boat already on the trailer, and I'm watching all these other ladies with their boats. I mean, it was, I don't know how high the waves were, but they had to point their boat nose into the wind, running their trolling motors just to try to stay, or not. I guess some of them had their big motors on.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty scary situation to watch, but thankfully everybody got loaded and out safely. So,
hallelujah for that. Yeah, so Caddo Lake is how many square miles, do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's pretty big. It's on the border of Louisiana and Texas, so you have to make sure you've got the proper licenses and all of that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a good sized lake, just full of tree stumps. So if you're not in the boat lane, you better be idling.
Yeah. Well, and we've got quite a few lakes like that here in Florida. I know like Rodman Reservoir, which is one of our big trophy bass lakes in the state of Florida, is very much like that. I mean, it was a dam that they flooded basically, and so there's a ton of trees and bridges and things that are submerged. So I've heard, when I go up there, I go with a guide just because I know he knows the area. He knows exactly where to go. I think he's got one of those mud motors on his boat. So, but yeah, I mean, if you don't know the area and you're coming into a place that you've never fished before, you really do have to do your homework and take advantage of that practice time so that you're safe.
Yep. And so a lot of, you burn a lot of time just idling to get to the spot you want to be at because you can't go fast.
Yeah.
But with that storm coming in, that really changed things up for me day two. I went back to the campground thinking, man, that place was on fire yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got back there and it was chocolate milk.
Oh, yeah. The water was all churned up from the day before.
And I tried it for a while and in the morning and it wasn't producing. And so day two was really, really tough for me. I had to totally change up my game plan and try some different areas I hadn't even tried before and just didn't go well.
Yeah, which, I mean, that's part of it. That's just part of the whole experience. So what would you do differently? Like if you could go back, is there anything you would have changed up on that second day?
Yeah, so we ended up going, I think it was north on day two toward the end of the day. I probably if I knew what I know now, I probably would have
some cleaner water.
Yep. I would have started up there. I wouldn't even have messed with going to the campground, which is funny. I was staying right there. You'd think I would know. But by the time you get up in the morning, it's dark. You can't,
Yeah, by the time you get the boat out of the water, that day, and I'm sure grab a bite to eat, get your gear and everything ready for day number 2. Yeah, you don't have a whole lot of time to really make those adjustments, and that's experience. That's part of the learning process, and you figure out, okay, next time this is what I would do differently. So from there, you went on to Lake Bull Shoals, and that's in Arkansas, right?
And
so
again,
we've got about a minute before we head to break, but give us a little bit of a rundown on how that went.
Bull Shoals was 30 feet high.
Wow.
We were launching from the parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
And if on your graph it showed you were on land, you better be idling because you don't know if you're going to hit a picnic table, a light pole. It was crazy. I mean, I was literally super clear water, so I was looking down at tops of trees.
So you just had every challenge thrown at you this past year.
Pretty much, yes.
Whoa.
Totally different, out of my comfort zone fishing because I'm typically a shallow water angler. Got lucky, found some good morning starting places where first time I ever fished a wake bait and had a lot of success with that wake bait in the mornings. And then got lucky a little bit. I had a really experienced co-angler with me on day 2, that Cassie Hall, and she kind of showed me a little bit about fishing ledges and stuff. And so I ended up seeing a school of a bunch of bass swim up to feed, and I cast out in my Senko and got it right in front of them, got a nice one. All the rest of them followed the fish up to the boat, which was a crazy thing to watch.
Yeah.
And, so.
It is so cool when you see those schooling fish and you cast, and they're fired up and they're feeding, and it's just going to be game on.
Fun.
All right, more when we come back. We're going to head off to a break. You're listening to Real Talk on ESPN Southwest Florida and on the ESPN Southwest Florida app. Stay tuned. This is Captain Debbie Hanson. I'm in the studio this morning with my special guest co-host, Captain Angie Scott of the Woman Angler and Adventure podcast. How's it going over there in the co-host seat, Angie?
It is going great. I got my little breakfast sandwich over here. Been snacking away at that.
Yeah, taking a few bites here and there.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Captain Greg,
thank you, Greg,
delivering breakfast this morning.
That was the best Christmas present I ever got.
I had a feeling you might say that, Rick.
Yeah. This is the way to kick off the holidays right here.
Little
pork breakfast sandwich,
Yeah,
can't beat that.
You gotta have some of that meat breakfast sandwich going on. You got the savory this morning. Then you can have the sweet tart candy canes and the cherry cordials.
There'll be plenty of that.
All right. So, Angie, we left off talking about Lake Bull Shoals in Arkansas. So that was the third lake you fished on the tournament trail this past year. And you said the water level was up. You said it was up like 30 feet, which is insane, especially when we're talking about all of the shallow lakes that we have here in the state of Florida. So, I mean, the conditions were really challenging, I'm sure.
Yeah. And
what did you learn from that whole experience?
What was interesting is the being up so high, but also each day as practice progressed and into the tournament, it was actually starting to go down. So conditions were starting to change every single day. And so you had to adjust. Yeah. And so it was definitely a great learning experience. But that third tournament, that's our wild card. So there's some additional ways people can qualify for the classic, which is the ultimate goal. Thankfully, I managed to do well enough in the 3 tournaments that I made the cut to qualify for the Classic.
Yes.
So, yeah. And that was on Lake Logan Martin in Alabama, which is actually where our Classic was the year before.
Okay.
And so, again, it's always nice to be familiar.
To have that background experience with having fished that fishery before.
And Logan Martin really plays to my strengths. And so I was really excited that I qualified and was going to get the chance to go back to Logan Martin. So this year we stayed at a different campground than we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was going to, my plan was to learn a different part of the lake closer to the campground, which is actually closer to where we were blasting off this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I did go back and fish some history just to check it out, but I didn't end up having to go there during the tournament because I did find some really good areas closer to where we were camping. And funny story, so the first day of the tournament, I actually had to fish solo, which I've never fished a tournament by myself.
Yeah, because usually you've got a co-angler with you.
And I've always wondered if I would make decisions differently if I didn't have somebody I'm thinking about on the back of the boat.
Right, because you don't just have to put yourself on fish, you've got to worry about your co-angler catching fish too.
Yeah. Even though how they perform doesn't affect me, but you always still want to, make sure your co-angler also does well. I mean, most people do anyway.
Right.
And so I definitely made decisions differently without a co-angler. And that first day, they let us go in the morning and thought that the fog was just kind of patchy. As we pulled away from the launch blast-off site, it was actually like solid fog. You could not see anything.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And so I'm by myself, so it's super eerie, and I'm just hoping that no other boat hits me.
Right.
And I'm going really slow so I don't hit another boat. And I was watching on my graph and saw that the campground that we were staying at was coming up. I had fished the campground at all during practice, but I was familiar with it, and I'm like, I'm just going to start there. That was not my plan.
Yeah.
But
given the conditions and right.
I'm like, otherwise I'm going to be idling forever and wasting all this time.
When you could be fishing.
Right. So I veered off and started fishing the campground and ended up doing really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that changed my whole game plan. And the Classic is actually, instead of 2 days, it's 3 days.
Okay.
So it's a little bit longer. And that ended up being my starting point. All 3 days was that campground.
Nice. So now, are you usually fishing on the weekends when there's a lot of recreational boat traffic too, or no?
So this one was Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
So we did have one weekend day. Luckily, it was later in October.
Yeah.
So the pleasure boaters and the other fishermen was kind of dialed back a little bit. There were 2 other tournaments going on that Saturday, the last day of the Classic. Mm-hmm. So that was something to factor in. But it wasn't the year before when we fished. It was earlier in October.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I had added a Millennium Marine, I think they call it the horse seat. It's like a horse saddle as my seat on the front, and I was so glad I had that because I was riding it literally like a horse. It was so much wake. I was like, yeehaw!
You're like, this is like the mechanical bull at one of the country western bars that I used to go to back in the day.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, but it wasn't that bad this time around.
Oh,
so,
that's good.
Yeah.
And I have to say that obviously the fog, you do need to be really careful when you're out there, but some of the best mornings I've had bass fishing have been foggy mornings.
Yeah.
I think it's just that the additional cover, the low light conditions, and those bass are much more willing to stray from cover and come out and hit your baits and lures. It's just
so I was really fortunate that I was familiar with that campground because a lot of the ladies ended up fishing closer to blast off because they didn't want to go very far in that extreme fog.
Right.
And that just wasn't as productive of an area to be fishing, so they kind of burned off some of that morning time,
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about how you decide, and I'm sure it's because this is your second year fishing the LBAA, correct?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about sort of your evolution over the past 2 years when you're fishing these tournaments, things you've learned and now do differently with regards to your baits, your rigs, your gear setups, all of that. And And I guess what you might even do differently moving into 2023 when you get ready to fish the next season.
So I feel like I've definitely dialed in all my setups. Like I know what techniques I enjoy, and so I really focus on playing to your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a setup for each of them that I've really dialed in at this point, where I'm comfortable with the rod reel combo, which I fish all St. Croix rods. Love St. Croix because they're so sensitive. Like you can feel every little thing, comfortable when you're fishing all day long. And so last year I felt like everything was it just wasn't there, like everything was it was kind of like my first year,
Yeah,
so
you're figuring everything out.
And
so getting used to the travel schedule and.
Yep, exactly. And now I feel like everything's dialed in. I'm really confident with that's the other thing, is just being confident with what you're using. And so I'll just do more of that going into 2023. But I have a jerkbait set up, my target crank set up, my, Cinco, all that stuff, So
how many rods do you usually have rigged up and ready to go during each tournament?
So I have probably 15 setups in my boat.
Yeah.
Like for Logan Martin, I really probably only touched 2 or 3.
Yeah.
The whole time.
But you had the other ones there and ready just in case.
Yep.
So are you looking for changes in conditions? Like what makes you kind of decide, okay, I'm going to start with my go-to Senko, or I'm going to start with the crankbait? Like what types of factors dictate what you're going to start with on any particular day?
Just, what you learn in practice for sure. Obviously, conditions are always changing. Logan Martin, no different.
Yeah.
It got super cold. I had heat warmers in my shoes and things like that because it was so cold. And so obviously that's going to affect the fish.
Yeah.
No top water was
That's
going on.
That's a good time for finesse right there.
Yeah, no top water action whatsoever. So, I was really focusing on a lot of finesse techniques. So,
yeah, fishing deeper in the water column in those cases.
You know what we found, at least on the last day of the tournament, because every day really fished different, which is what, seems to be the pattern
yeah.
with these tournaments. But the last day of the tournament, the fish were really holding to like laydowns in shallow water.
Okay. They were holding tight to cover in shallow.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what, luckily I'd practiced
around any
enough.
Docks?
Some docks, but for whatever reason, grass and those laydowns were key. So luckily I had practice fished enough where I might not have fished that in practice, but I knew where those areas were in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew where to go to find similar structure.
Yeah, to establish that pattern and just basically stick to that pattern if you know that's what's working. Well, that's so cool. I mean, congratulations on wrapping up another year, and 2023 is coming up, and you fished your first. So your first event is what, the second week of March?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to cut our time in Florida a little shorter than planned, unfortunately, because we'll have to go up and some changes going into 2023.
Yeah, like what, Angie Scott? Do tell. I
haven't announced it anywhere yet, so anybody listening
it's a Real Talk Radio exclusive. Yes. You heard it here first.
So we're switching up boats this year, or going into 2023. I've been fishing from a little bit of an unconventional bass fishing boat, which has been, I absolutely love it. It's a Key West 230 Bay Reef center console.
Mm-hmm. Which is great for fishing around here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the boat. It's super fun to drive. But it's, when you get down to it, it's not the best tool for the job. There's a reason why they make bass boats. And so going into 2023, we're switching it up, and we're going with a Crestliner MX-19. So,
oh, that's so exciting.
Yes, going aluminum. Which is going to be great for all these lakes that we fish that are shallow and have a bunch of tree stumps.
Right.
It's going to be powered by Mercury, and we'll have Lowrance electronics on it, and I'm super excited. One thing about the Crestliners, the bass boats, is they have phenomenal amount of storage.
Mm-hmm.
So for all those rods,
yeah, when you've got 16 different rods that you need to bring with you,
all that different tackle, I mean, I'll be able to fit everything easily on that boat, and be able to run it in almost no water. So that suits me perfectly.
Yeah. Well, and you won't have you have a tower now on the boat, or not a tower, but you've got the T-top, correct?
We actually removed the T-top for this year.
Yeah.
Which helped. But even, I fished a tournament on Nickajack Lake in Tennessee, and to get back to the dam area, which is known to be a really good area to fish, there was a really low bridge, and even with the center console, I probably had about an inch of clearance, and with the water level fluctuating, you don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah, that could be a nail biter.
Yeah,
right there.
so having the bass boat is definitely going to help in those situations.
Definitely. Well, congratulations. Thank you. So exciting. And once again, I can't wait to follow along on your adventures. I love following you on Facebook. So real quick before we head off to break, Andrew, remind people where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so the podcast, the website's thewomanangler.com. You can listen to all the episodes there. On social media, it's just at The Woman Angler.
Awesome stuff. All right, we're going to head off to a break. More with Angie when we come back. You're listening to Real Talk on ESPN Southwest Florida and on the ESPN Southwest Florida app. We'll be back. Fishing is like the great connector. It just brings people together and really is just clearly one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I'm so grateful.
Fishing is life.
Fishing is life, as they say. Yes. So grateful for all of that good stuff over the years. And I know, Angie, I know you'd agree with me.
Yes.
Because you started fishing. How old were you when you got out on the water up in Minnesota?
I mean, before I can even remember.
Yeah.
I remember the first Christmas gift I really remember was a little tackle box and a Zebco,
Yeah.
closed reel and
the spin
rod.
casting
Yes.
gear. Yeah. The Mickey Mouse rod. Did you have a Mickey Mouse rod?
I never did. No.
Actually, mine was Snoopy.
Maybe I did, and I don't remember, but I remember the one that I'm thinking of at Christmas was, more of a youth, not a, little kid rod, but.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm telling you what, it's like just getting out there. And was it your dad that used to take you fishing?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yep. And he still has the same aluminum craft boat that we had.
Does he really?
Yep. Same Johnson 40 horse motor on the back, and somehow he just keeps it going. I don't know how he does it. But.
You were out there catching walleye.
Yep.
With Rick back in the day.
Yes.
That's right. That's Minnesota style.
You know it. Yeah. Which actually, I got to tell you guys, since you're both from Minnesota, I figured I would bring in a little Minnesota trivia.
Ah.
Do you have some time to play here?
We got
with
a
us?
few minutes,
All right.
yeah.
So let's just do this. I've got 10 questions. Let's see who can answer these Minnesota trivia questions first here. So let's see. We'll start off with what kind of animal is the mascot for the University of Minnesota?
Gophers.
I know. Gophers.
Oh, Angie,
do we have a buzzer?
Yeah, I was going to say.
We don't. I know. We need
All right,
one.
we'll just yell it out first.
Yeah, just yell it out.
Gophers.
Angie got that one. Name the processed meat product that's manufactured in Austin, Minnesota.
Spam.
Oh, that was a tie. All right. What Minnesota product used the commercial jingle from The Land of Sky Blue Waters?
Ham's beer.
Oh, yeah. Rick, you got that one.
Back in the day.
Yeah. How about this one? The Minnesotan that made the first nonstop solo flight across the Atlantic.
Ooh.
Ooh,
I stumped you both on this one?
Listen, I know my beer and my mascots, but pilots? I don't know.
Come on, Rick.
I don't know that
Charles Lindbergh.
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Charles
I
Lindbergh
guess I knew
was
the
from
name.
Minnesota.
I didn't know he was a Minnesotan.
All right. Here's another one for you. Now, Rick, you got to know this one. Name the professional wrestler who
Jesse Ventura.
Oh,
wow.
Angie.
Wow.
I didn't even get to finish the question. She got that one.
Wow.
All right. The name of the
Just to finish the question, by the way, who became governor?
Yeah.
A professional wrestler who became governor.
Jesse the Body Ventura.
So
Body
was he a
Ventura.
good governor? Did he govern well?
I think he was
Or
fairly
did he sort of
well-liked.
strong-arm people?
Funny story. I voted in that election. I voted for him, and then I moved to Tennessee immediately.
He was kind of Trump-like in that he was kind of a fish out of water type, but I think he was relatively well-liked for the most part. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But, I mean, well-liked is one thing. Did he do a good job?
That's really up to the eye of the beholder, ain't it?
Okay. All right. We don't want to get political. All right, so the name of the first enclosed shopping mall built in Minnesota.
Mall of America.
No. No. Wrong.
Whoa. Wait, the first enclosed?
The first enclosed shopping mall built in Minnesota. Do you know, Angie?
I'll just throw out a guess. I don't have any real idea. Rosedale?
Nope.
That's what I was going to say. Because that's kind of a famous...
Southdale.
Southdale, okay.
Southdale. All right, 3 more. What Minnesota company manufactures Super Bowl rings?
Jostens.
Yes.
Yes, you got it, Rick.
Yep.
You got it.
You beat me.
2 cartoon characters that lived in Frostbite Falls, Minnesota.
That I don't.
Cartoon
This is taking it back a little bit. 2 cartoon characters. Nah.
I have no idea.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Way back in my
All right,
childhood.
last
I
one.
did not know that.
Last one.
Okay.
What native Minnesotan won the Nobel Prize for Literature for his novel Main Street?
F. Scott Fitzgerald?
No, but
Close.
he did write The Great Gatsby, and he was from Minnesota, so
Wow.
so close. Yeah. Sinclair Lewis.
Oh,
Sinclair Lewis.
Tough questions, Debbie.
Yeah, well, I was like, all right, I got these 2 Minnesota Vikings fans in the studio at the same time. I got to bring some
That's
Minnesota
right, and our
trivia.
Vikings play about 3 hours from now.
Oh, I forgot it's today.
It's today.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Angie
today
already, she has the Vikings bar scoped out where she's
Okay.
watching the games and everything.
Well, it's
yeah.
1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
Pet
today.
friendly, too, so we can bring the
Oh,
puppies.
Oh,
Beautiful.
there you go. Got to have that.
Go
All right.
Vikes.
Heading off to a break. You're listening to Real Talk on ESPN Southwest Florida and on the ESPN Southwest Florida app. We'll be back. A few more text messages rolling through. We got a text message from our mutual friend, Gabriella McGrath. She says, good morning, Captains. Great show so far. Can't wait to hear more about the kayak fishing meetup and can't wait to see you guys. We can't wait to see you too, Gab. We're really looking forward to it. And then Michael Hornung checking in, and he was wondering if we had ever tried ice fishing. Speaking of Minnesota fishing, I used to do it, my goodness, way back when I was knee-high to a grasshopper with my grandfather every once in a great while, but not very often, and I haven't done it in forever. How about you, Angie?
I've had a few more recent experiences ice fishing than I did when I was a kid. Actually, I got to ice fish on Lake Superior out of Bayfield, Wisconsin, which was interesting, being on one of the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
I'm from Duluth, so I know exactly where you're talking about.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, had to go through Duluth to get there,
Yep.
but had some ice shifting and things like that, and that's can be a little
that's a little sketchy.
Scary. Yeah.
It's creepy because I've done a lot. You can sometimes hear the ice kind of crackling, and it's
yes.
and here your friend's got his Chevy pickup parked
right.
out on the ice. You're like,
there's a few snowmobiles out there parked on the ice, and every year you hear about somebody's snowmobile going through the ice or something like that. Yeah, no thanks. I think I'm good with fishing down here. All right. We're going to head over to line 1 because we've got Captain Steve Johnson standing by for the first time in what feels like forever. Hey, Captain Steve, we are so happy to hear from you.
Captain Debbie, Captain Angie, it's so nice to be back on the show again.
Yes. How are things going, Steve?
Well, we're kind of getting things back together a little bit. You know, we got hit pretty hard like a lot of other people did. I know Dave got hit really hard, and lots of other people here got hit harder than we did, but just took a little while to kind of get things back in shape to where we could kind of get back on track as far as all the events and the tournaments and things like that. A lot of things, particularly locally, you know, we lost a lot of tournaments here. We've lost a lot of the marinas, a lot of the dockage. So it's going to be a little bit of a struggle getting back into the normal routine again.
Yeah. Well, we were definitely thinking about you every week around 9 o'clock. Every Saturday around 9 o'clock. We missed you, so we're really, really happy that things are starting to come back together for you, and it's great to hear you back on air. So,
it's great to be back. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. Give us the scoop, Steve. I'm sure there's lots coming up.
And then on the 8th, we've got the women's kayak fishing meetup, and I think you were talking about that a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on this morning, later on this hour. But, yeah, we're really looking forward to that. We're going to meet up at Serenia Vista Park, which is actually in Cape Coral, and we're going to meet up at 7. We're going to fish till about 12:30, and then we're going to head over to Michelli's for lunch right afterwards. So anyone is welcome to come if they've got their own kayak, paddleboard, or even canoe, because we're going to be fishing some of those backwater areas. And and then there's a few spots. I want to say there's 2 or 3 spots left on the guided kayak trip, which Angie and I have both shared links to sign up for the guided portion of that trip on our Facebook pages. So if people want to go ahead and sign up, the sign up is through Gulf Coast Kayaks, and we're teaming up with them, and they're going to have a couple of guides set up to help those who are not familiar with the area get out there and get on some fish. So we're looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Should be a great event.
Yeah, exciting stuff. Steve, you have a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. Actually, I might see you later this week because I'm going to stop up at Lear. So hopefully I'll be up there and you'll be working when I stop by, and I'll get a chance to wish you a Merry Christmas in person.
Well, sounds great. Thank you very much, Debbie. Nice to meet you, Angie. Take care.
Take care, Steve. Talk to you soon.
You guys have a great holiday.
You too. Bye-bye. That is Captain Steve Johnson with fish-florida.com. So, Angie, tell me a little bit about, I know that we've got the National Professional Anglers Association. The conference is coming up. It's January 6th through 8th right here in Fort Myers. I know you've been to one of the conferences in the past, so tell me a little bit about your experiences with it. And I know, obviously, this is not for the general public. It's for people who are in the fishing industry. But I know they also have different levels of membership for, I believe it's junior anglers and those who are involved in the professional fishing community.
Yeah, really, it's a great organization for anyone who's even interested in learning more about the fishing industry, and want to network with people who are in it professionally. So the name's a little misleading. So some people think, I have to be a professional
bass angler to be a member.
Right. Yeah. And that's not really the case. But there are a lot of professionals that are in it that, if this is something you're looking to do, it's a great organization to get in. And it's not very expensive. And there's a lot of benefits to being a member other than the networking. There's a whole list of brands in the fishing industry that partner with the MPA that you get huge discounts from, and to me that ends up paying your $100 a year membership very quickly.
Yes.
So, but the first conference I attended was pre-COVID. It was in Wisconsin Dells, and so it's really a big deal that they've moved it all the way down here to Fort Myers this year. And so I'm super excited about that. But traditionally, it was kind of known as a Midwest. Most of the members typically were walleye people, and it's really shifting, and they're trying to get more bass people involved. So the last conference I went to one of the keynote speakers was Johnny Morris, who owns Bass Pro Shops.
Yeah.
He handed out $100 gift cards, so you never know what's going to happen.
That's amazing.
Every single person.
And Mike Iaconelli was
yes,
there.
And he's, a phenomenal speaker, high energy.
Yeah.
Just really showed a lot of light on, being a professional and carrying yourself in the industry and that type of thing. This year, we've got one of my favorite bass anglers, a good friend of mine, Gerald Swindle, G-Man.
Woohoo!
I cannot wait to see his talk. That's going to be
Yeah, and
amazing.
Bobby Lane is another featured speaker. So some amazing speakers and some outstanding breakout sessions. And you're holding a women's networking meetup,
Yep.
correct, during the conference?
Yep, and we did that back when we had it in Wisconsin Dells as well. So a lot of the ladies that are part of the organization, it's just an opportunity to meet each other, network, get to know each other. It's pretty casual. We'll have some food and drinks and things like that, and just get to know each other. So
Yeah. So for those who want more information, you can head on over to npaa.net for additional information to learn about the conference. I think there's still a few spots open. And then piggybacking off the conference, on Sunday, January 8th is when Angie and I are co-hosting the Women's Kayak Fishing Meetup, which again is going to be up at Serenia Vista Park, and that is in Cape Coral. We are teaming up with Gulf Coast Kayaks, and it's going to be amazing. So ladies, if you have your own kayak, canoe, paddleboard, come up and meet us at 7 a.m. Sunday, January 8th. If not, if you're not familiar with the area, you don't have a kayak, we still have just a few spots open through Gulf Coast Kayaks. They have a registration link on their social media channels, or you can find Angie or myself on social media. My social media channels, I'm at SheFishes2 on Instagram, and I've got the link and some information on the meetup there. And Angie, you're on Facebook. They can find you, Angie Scott, or through her Woman Angler and Adventure Facebook page. Or you can also go to the Gulf Coast Kayaks website, or just give Gulf Coast Kayaks a call. And Brian and Diana will take great care of you and make sure that you get signed up. So we want to thank Gulf Coast Kayaks for helping to coordinate all of this. And I know they are currently trailering their kayaks to different locations to get people out on the water, since they're in Matlacha and they had some damage to their building. So we really appreciate them. We want to support them and everybody up in the Matlacha fishing community. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this. And of course, to meet all the amazing female anglers that are out there that Angie and I have not connected with yet. So we're truly looking forward to this. And Angie, I know like you and I also teamed up with BB Dalton and Dee Kaminsky to hold a women's fishing meetup during ICAST this past year. It went over, from my opinion, incredibly well.
yes.
And the focus was on retention, and we talked about a lot of ways that the fishing community can help support and retain women in the sport. So I really wanted to kind of touch on a few of those ideas that came up during the conference. Was there maybe one or two that resonated particularly with you?
Yeah, well, one theme that I kind of saw come up quite a bit is just in the imagery that people share on social media, just stressing that we're all different shapes, sizes, not the cookie cutter bikini wearing
right
female angler.
Right.
And so that I saw come up several times. One person mentioned to stress the mental health benefits to fishing, and I think that that's an important topic right now. A lot of people struggling with mental health issues and just
especially after being isolated during COVID for so long.
Yep, and to be able to get out on the water, release some stress. And so that was another thing that stood out to me. And I know one that kind of resonated with you as well was about stereotypes.
Yeah. That one really resonated with me, and I got to give credit to Gabrielle McGrath, because her and I have had a lot of conversations along these lines, just about the fact that I think we need to be conscious of stereotypes in our industry. I think anywhere in life, but with fishing particularly, I think because it's been more of a male-dominated sport for so long, the fact that a lot of times I think people are well-meaning, and there's positive stereotypes out there too, right? Like, well, women are more patient, women have a gentler touch, but the fact that a stereotype is still a stereotype, so it's something to think of, when in reality we should really be thinking of people as individuals and treating them as such, right? Because I've had women on my boat as clients who, you know, they might be more, you know, just more of, they might have more of a go-getting aggressive style to fishing. They might not be as gentler. So, I mean, it's really about thinking about the individual, right? And that's what it comes down to. Because a lot of times it's just, we want people to feel welcome in the sport and that they're not pigeonholed into being any one certain way. And I think a lot of times when you hear messaging, when you hear people talk in fishing shows, you hear a lot of things like, oh, well, you know, my husband is, you know, he's driving the boat, or my wife is at home taking care of things. But now it could be the wife that's driving the boat, or it could be the wife that's out there on the water fishing in some of these tournaments. So I think it's important just to be mindful of some of those things, for sure.
Yeah, and it's been great. I'm starting to see that more and more. You know, the wife driving the boat, or on the front of the boat running the trolling motor, you know,
right?
And that's exciting to see.
It's great to see more and more women getting out there and fishing tournaments, guiding. We've got some amazing, you know, both male and female guides in the Southwest Florida fishing community, and I love seeing more women getting out there and doing it as a profession. It's amazing. It really is. And I think just, you know, celebrating each other and continuing to have meetups like this, and just understanding that it can be super easy. It doesn't have to be anything complicated or time consuming to organize. It's really just about getting people together and having that sense of community, which I think is so important. I mean, how has that feeling of community helped you, Angie, throughout your time as a tournament angler, and, you know, just building your skills throughout the years?
Oh, it's been huge, and that's one of the things I enjoy most about fishing the LBA tournaments. You know, fishing tournaments, it sounds all fun and games, but it's a lot of work. And the reason I do it is for that camaraderie. And, you know, every tournament I fish, I get paired up with a different co-angler. Sometimes I have the same people. It's just luck of the draw who you end up with.
Yeah.
But I learned something from every single one of these ladies, and that's my favorite part about it.
Yeah. It's fantastic to be able to get out there and feel like you can talk with other like-minded anglers about your experiences and just some of the, you know, the hurdles that we go through in this profession, just to share some of those experiences and try to help each other along the way, I think is incredibly important. So I'm super excited about the 8th, and I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait. And some of these ladies that are coming, I've had on my podcast and haven't met in person yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention, cause I know like Pam Worth has been on the show. Lisa Fitzgerald's been on the show here with me, and I know they've been on your podcast too. And one thing that Lisa, I think, hit the nail on the head, and she said this on your podcast, and she said this here in the studio, just about the fact that there's so much more to fishing and being a professional in this industry outside of just holding up a fish for a photo. It's about the conservation component. Are you giving back to the fishing community in some level, on some level? And I think those are some really important points. Are you mentoring people? Are you helping people get involved? There's a lot more to being a good role model than just getting out on the water and fishing. It's also mentoring the next generation and being mindful of some of those conservation messages, I think. So, yeah. All right, we got 1 minute before we have to head off to a break here, Rick. So, Angie, what advice do you have? I mean, you have grown so much with your podcast, fishing the tournaments, you're working for Freedom Boat Club, you've got so much going on, scheduling, I'm sure your time gets to be really tight. So, what advice do you have for women in the industry who are looking to get out there and start a career in it? Maybe just one or two quick pieces of advice.
Yeah, I'd say just, put a plan together and just start working your plan. I kind of jumped into it. I don't necessarily recommend just doing it the way I did, but it worked out. So maybe it's not such a bad thing. But, just do little things every day to try to work toward your goal, and it will pay off dividends.
Yeah. Amen. That's so true. And just be open to the fact that sometimes you have to create your own path. You might not see a path in the industry, but I know, with me personally, I was really fortunate to start off blogging for the Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, and I can't thank them enough for the opportunities that they've given me and for their Women Making Waves initiative. It's really helped to give me not just a platform, but a place to feel comfortable with writing and really a foundation for my blogging and outdoor writing, that portion of my career. So sometimes you got to diversify and you got to wear many different hats, as you very well know. So, all right. Well, we're going to head off to a break, but more when we come back. You're listening to Real Talk on ESPN Southwest Florida and on the ESPN Southwest Florida app. We'll be back. Good morning and welcome back to Real Talk. This is Captain Debbie Hanson. I'm in the studio this morning with Captain Angie Scott of the Woman Angler and Adventurer. And we are rolling into the final 10 minutes of Real Talk. Wow, man, talk about time flying, Angie.
So fast.
So fast. So fast.
Probably not going to get too much snow here in Southwest Florida this Christmas, but
no.
I just wanted to mention to you real quick, during this hour, I wanted to play one of my favorite Christmas songs.
Which is
You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch.
Oh, that is a good one.
And as I was kind of previewing it and queuing it up, it occurred to me he uses the B word in the very first stanza of that song.
Really?
Yeah, remember he goes, you're a rotten bee with a dirty black peel.
Oh, yeah, he does. You're right.
So I skipped it, man.
Even though you kind of blew that one last Saturday, Rick.
Yeah.
Didn't want to bring it up again, but
well, that's why I didn't want to do it again. So I just wanted to let you know.
Angie, do you believe in the bad luck B word? Like, is that a thing with you?
Fruit?
No, I've not heard of this.
Oh, really?
What?
Actually, yeah.
Wow.
You haven't?
Oh, wait.
The yellow fruit.
Yes, that. Yes,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
My LLC is actually called No.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is it really?
Oh, so
really?
you definitely believe in the superstition.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we've talked about it on the show often, and we've always found it if we ever accidentally use the word, and I'm not kidding, something goes wrong.
Things happen.
We've had phone lines
and
break
they're
down.
Not good things.
We've had microphones break down just from saying the word, so we call it the B word. And that's why I didn't play How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Well, thank you for being cognizant of that, Rick. We really appreciate it, considering this is the last show for 2 weeks, and we'd like to leave it on a high note here. So, Angie, all right, we got 10 minutes. We got to squeeze this all in. So, the LBAA 2023. Let's talk about what's coming up for you, some goals you have for the upcoming year, bucket list species. Start off with the waterways that you're going to be fishing for the LBAA.
Some new waterways for us this year, or for me anyways. The first tournament, Lake Palestine in Texas, a little bit further south from Ray Hubbard, where we fished the last couple of years. So looking forward to that. Lake Chattooga, I believe is how you say it, in Georgia.
Okay.
So that will be fun. And then Truman Lake in Missouri, which I have fished that before. It was actually my first ever experience with the LBA. It was as a co-angler just to kind of see what it was all about.
Yeah.
And so I'm a little bit familiar with Truman Lake. I remember the water level was really low at that time, so hopefully that won't be the case this time around, but I'll be in the Crestliner, so I'll be prepared if it is.
You've got it, yeah.
And then goal to qualify again for the Classic, which we're going back to Bull Shoals. And the water level should not be 30 feet high when we go back, so it'll be a totally different lake. I have fished Bull Shoals before the LBA, and it was actually, we hired a walleye guide to go
Oh,
out.
did you really?
Yeah, my dad and I several years ago. And we didn't catch any walleye on that trip, though. We got a bunch of white bass, which was still fun.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so I'll be looking forward. Anchor Point is where we launch out of, and the couple that runs that campground, just absolutely amazing people. So we're looking forward to hopefully qualifying for the Classic.
Yeah.
And making it back there.
So you ended up this year, 12th out of 30-some odd anglers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And if there's ladies out there who want to learn more about the LBAA, where do they go to get more information on that?
Yep, the best way is just go to ladybassanglers.com. All the information's already updated on the website for 2023. I believe they start accepting registrations after the 1st, so coming up soon. Everybody's welcome. You don't have to be a super experienced bass angler. You can start out as a co-angler and get paired up with a pro, and I mean that's just going to accelerate your learning curve.
Yeah, and it's nice because it's not too intensive. You're fishing 3 events plus the Classic,
right.
So that's manageable. If
yes.
people have work schedules they need to work around and all that type of thing.
Yep, and that's why they do it that way, is to accommodate. Because everybody has full-time careers.
Jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So let's talk about your fishing New Year's resolutions or your goals for 2023, Angie.
Well, while I'm down here in Florida, I've got a couple of goals. One, I want to do more freshwater fishing because I haven't done a lot of that down here yet. And I brought a couple of my St. Croix bass rods with me, so I've got those.
Woohoo!
And then I've got a brand new one sitting here in the studio for my inshore fishing.
Yes, you do.
So definitely going to be doing some more of that. And I want to get my first peacock bass.
Oh, we're going to make that happen. That's going down for sure.
Yes.
We'll have to make a run out to the Everglades and get out there and have you experience that, because that's pretty amazing. Yeah. And, yeah, from the freshwater perspective, you've got your choice of so many great places that are just within a short drive from here. I know we were talking about on break, but Okeechobee, Ixtapoga, you've got Lake Placid. I mean, all those lakes in the Sebring area are fantastic and easily within driving distance. So, yeah, you've got your work cut out for you for the next couple of months. Lots of stuff to do in this area. So it's exciting. It's super exciting. So, I mean, what do you think as far as, 2023 and the podcast? I mean, it's just been awesome to watch you grow the podcast, and some of the guests you've had on have just been amazing. Do you have any exciting guests lined up for the new year? Are you working on lining up guests?
Well, I have some bucket list guests that I've kind of got some ins. One is Brandy Carlisle. She really loves to fish, and so I've kind of got it in with her manager through I used to work in the music industry.
Yeah,
so
no way. That's really awesome.
She would be really cool to have on the show. I've had Brittany Howard on the show from Alabama Shakes. Now she's got a solo career, and we've actually now gone on some trips up to Lake Erie and done a couple walleye bass fishing trips with her. She's been on the show. She's
Very
good
cool.
friends with Brandy Carlisle. So I got a couple ins there to hopefully get her on at some point. Rachel Maddow is actually somebody that I'd like to have on the show. She loves to ice fish. A lot of people don't know that, but if you follow her on Instagram, every now and then she'll put up a post about fishing. So she would be a huge guest to have on the show. And maybe Melissa Etheridge. She loves to fish as well.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely
I heard a
amazing,
story.
too.
I would love for her to tell it on the podcast, that she actually taught Brad Pitt how to cast a fly rod for The River Runs Through It.
Really?
In her swimming pool. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that would be a great story to have her tell. Now, is she still in the Nashville area?
I actually don't know where she lives. So I gotta do a little homework there.
Yeah. Well, Angie, thanks so much for all you do to support women in the fishing community and for all you do on the podcast. I mean, I know that it takes a lot of time to schedule all the guests, and I know just how many women really appreciate hearing just all of the different perspectives on fishing that so many of these women bring to your show. And not just on fishing. I mean, really anything outdoors. You just had an ice climber on your last podcast. So
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one just came out on Tuesday.
Yep. New episodes come out every Tuesday. So tune in, womanangler.com or on any of the major podcast platforms.
Yeah, awesome stuff. You won't regret it. And thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it, Angie.
All right, thanks for listening. Everyone, please have a safe and happy new year. I'll see you back here in 2023 for more new episodes every single Tuesday. Be sure you're subscribed on Spotify or your favorite podcast platform. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. If you don't leave a review. No, I'm just kidding. Until next time, stay safe and tight lines.